Welcome to the most foul true crime. From notorious criminals and unsolved mysteries to chilling tales of deceit and murder, we bring you the most compelling and detailed stories from around the globe. Today, in no particular order, we're counting down the top 10 unsolved mysteries from the United States. These cases have baffled investigators, haunted communities, and left families seeking answers for years. From mystery disappearances to brutal murders, each story is a testament to the dark and enigmatic side of human nature. The murder of Harriette and Harriette Moore, 1951. The murder of Harriette and Harriette Moore is a tragic and significant event in the history of the civil rights movement in the United States. Harriette Moore and his wife Harriette V.S. Moore were prominent civil rights activists in Florida. Harry was an educator and a leader in the NAACP. The Moores were deeply involved in the efforts to achieve equal pay for black teachers, register black voters, and seek justice for victims of racial violence. On the night of 25 December 1951, the Moores were celebrating both Christmas and their 25th wedding anniversary at their home in Mims, Florida. As they settled into bed, a bomb planted under their bedroom floor exploded. Harry died on the way to the hospital, and Harriette succumbed to her injuries 9 days later on 3 January 1952. The bombing was widely believed to be an act of retribution for Harry Moore's civil rights activities. The FBI conducted an extensive investigation and identified several suspects, including members of the Ku Klux Klan, but there was no sufficient evidence to bring charges. The murder of Harry and Harriette Moore was a significant event in the early civil rights movement. They were the first NAACP officials to be assassinated, and their deaths highlighted the extreme dangers faced by civil rights activists in the Jim Crow South. The Moores' work and sacrifice inspired many others to continue the fight for racial equality. In recognition of their contributions and sacrifice, the Moore Cultural Complex was established in Mims, Florida to honor their legacy. The Freeway Phantom Murders, 1971 to 1972. The Freeway Phantom Murders refer to a series of unsolved killings that took place in Washington, D.C. between April 1971 and September 1972. The victims were 6 young African-American girls, and the case remains one of the most haunting mysteries in the history of the city. Carol Denise Spinks, 13 years old, disappeared 25 April 1971. Carol was sent by her older sister to buy groceries at a nearby 7-Eleven. She was abducted on her way home, and her body was found 6 days later near I-295. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled. Darlenia Denise Johnson, 16 years old, disappeared 8 July 1971. Darlenia was on her way to her summer job when she was abducted. Her body was found 11 days later, just 15 feet from where Carol Spinks had been discovered. Due to decomposition, the exact cause of death was unclear, but evidence suggested strangulation. Brenda Faye Crockett, 10 years old, disappeared 27 July 1971. Brenda was sent to the store by her mother and never returned. She made 2 phone calls to her home, claiming she was with a white man in Virginia. Her body was found hours later near US Route 50. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled. Neno Moshia Yates, 12 years old, disappeared 1st October 1971. Neno Moshia was walking home from a Safeway store when she was abducted. Her body was found within hours near the Baltimore-Washington Parkway. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled. Brenda Denise Woodward, 18 years old, disappeared 15 November 1971. Brenda was last seen getting off a bus. Her body was found hours later on an access ramp to Route 202. She had been sexually assaulted, strangled, and stabbed. A note from the killer was found in her coat pocket, taunting the police. Diane Denise Williams, 17 years old, disappeared 5 September 1972. Diane was last seen boarding a bus after visiting her boyfriend. Her body was found hours later on I-295. She had been strangled, but there was no evidence of sexual assault. The investigation into the Freeway Phantom murders faced numerous challenges. The killer left few clues, and the victims were all young African American girls, which some believe led to less media attention and fewer resources being allocated to the case. The taunting note found on Brenda Woodward suggested the killer was confident and possibly familiar with police procedures. Over the years, several suspects have been considered, including members of a local gang and individuals with a history of similar crimes. However, no one has been definitively linked to the murders. The case remains unsolved, and the identity of the Freeway Phantom is still unknown. The Disappearance of Relisha Rudd, 2014. The disappearance of Relisha Rudd is a heartbreaking and a complex case that has remained unsolved for years. Relisha Tenor Rudd was born on 29 October 2005. At the time of her disappearance, she was living with her mother, Shamika Young, and her siblings at the DC General Shelter in Washington, D.C. The family had been staying at the shelter due to homelessness. Relisha was last seen on 1st March 2014 when she was 8 years old. She had been absent from school for several weeks, but her mother had provided a note stating that Relisha was under the care of a Dr. Tatum due to health issues. This Dr. Tatum was actually Khalil Tatum, a 51-year-old janitor at the shelter who had a criminal record and had befriended Relisha and her family. The investigation into Relisha's disappearance began on 19 March 2014 when a school counselor contacted the police after Tatum failed to show up for a scheduled meeting. Surveillance footage revealed that Relisha had been seen with Tatum at a Holiday Inn Express in Northeast Washington, D.C. on February 26th and later at a Days Inn on 1st March. This footage was the last confirmed sighting of Relisha. On 20 March 2014, the same day Relisha was reported missing, Khalil Tatum's wife, Andrea, was found shot dead in a motel room in Prince George's County, Maryland. A massive search for Relisha ensued, focusing on areas where Tatum was known to have been. On 31st March 2014, Tatum's body was found in a shed in Kenilworth Park and Aquatic Gardens in Washington, D.C. He had died from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Despite extensive searches and numerous tips, Relisha Rudd has never been found. Her case remains open, and the Metropolitan Police Department continues to solicit information from the public. The disappearance of Relisha Rudd has highlighted issues related to child welfare, homelessness, and the need for better protective measures for vulnerable children. The death of Kendrick Johnson, 2013. The death of Kendrick Johnson is a deeply troubling and controversial case that has sparked significant public interest and debate. On 11 January 2013, the body of 17-year-old Kendrick Johnson was discovered inside a rolled-up gym mat in the gymnasium of Lowndes High School in Valdosta, Georgia. His body was found head first in the center of the mat, which had been stored upright. The discovery was made by fellow students who noticed his feet sticking out from the mat. The initial investigation by local authorities concluded that Johnson's death was accidental. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation conducted an autopsy and determined that he had died from positional asphyxia, suggesting that he had become trapped while trying to retrieve a shoe from inside the mat. It was common for students to store their shoes in or around the mats to avoid paying for lockers. Johnson's family was not satisfied with the official explanation and believed foul play was involved. They commissioned a second autopsy, which was conducted by a private pathologist. This autopsy concluded that Johnson had died from blunt force trauma to the neck, contradicting the initial findings. In response to the conflicting autopsy results, the U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Georgia opened a formal review of the case in October 2013. Despite extensive investigations, including a review by the FBI, no charges were filed and the case was closed in June 2016. Johnson's family filed a $100 million civil lawsuit against 38 individuals, alleging that his death was a murder and that there was a conspiracy to cover it up. The lawsuit named 2 sons of an FBI agent as potential suspects. However, the lawsuit was later withdrawn and the family was ordered to pay legal fees for the defendants. The case remains highly controversial, with many believing that the true circumstances of Johnson's death have not been fully uncovered. The family's persistent efforts to seek justice have kept the case in the public eye, and it continues to be a topic of significant interest and debate. The Murder of Tupac Shakur, 1996. The murder of Tupac Shakur is one of the most infamous and enduring mysteries in the history of hip-hop. Tupac Amaru Shakur, also known as Tupac, was a highly influential rapper, actor, and activist. Born on 16 June 1971 in New York City, he became a central figure in the West Coast hip-hop and was known for his powerful lyrics addressing social issues, violence, and inequality. On 7 September 1996, Tupac attended the Bruce Seldon vs. Mike Tyson boxing match at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas with Marion Suge Knight, the head of Death Row Records. After the match, Tupac and his entourage participated in a physical altercation with Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, a member of the Southside Compton Crips, in the hotel lobby. Later that night, around 11:15 p.m., Tupac and Suge Knight were stopped at a red light at the intersection of East Flamingo Road and Colville Lane. A white Cadillac pulled up alongside their BMW, and the occupants opened fire. Tupac was hit 4 times, twice in the chest, once in the arm, and once in the thigh. Suge Knight was grazed by a bullet but survived. Tupac was rushed to the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada, where he underwent multiple surgeries. Despite the efforts to save him, Tupac succumbed to his injuries and died on 13 September 1996 at the age of 25. The investigation into Tupac's murder has been fraught with challenges and controversies. Orlando Anderson was initially considered a prime suspect due to the altercation earlier that night, but he was never charged and was later killed in an unrelated shooting in 1998. In a significant development, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, a former gang leader, was charged with Tupac's murder on 29 September 2023. Davis, who had previously admitted to being in the car from which the shots were fired, was accused of orchestrating the shooting as retaliation for the fight with Anderson. Tupac Shakur's death had a profound impact on the music industry and his fans. He is remembered as one of the greatest and most influential rappers of all time, with a legacy that continues to inspire new generations of artists. The Disappearance of Daniel Robinson, 2021. The disappearance of Daniel Robinson is a perplexing and ongoing case that has garnered significant attention. Daniel Robinson, born on 14 January 1997, was a 24-year-old geologist working for Matrix New World, an engineering company in Buckeye, Arizona. Despite being born without his lower right arm, Daniel was active in athletics and graduated from the College of Charleston in 2019 with a degree in geology. On 23 June 2021, Daniel was last seen leaving a job site near Sun Valley Parkway and Cactus Road in Buckeye around 9:15 a.m. He was driving his 2017 blue-gray Jeep Renegade westward into the desert. When he failed to return home, he was reported missing later that day. On 19 July 2021, a rancher found Daniel's Jeep rolled over on its side in a ravine on his property. The vehicle's airbags had deployed and personal items such as Daniel's cell phone, wallet, keys, and clothes were found inside. The discovery raised more questions than answers, as there were no immediate signs of Daniel at the scene. The Buckeye Police Department, along with other agencies, conducted extensive searches covering over 70 square miles using UTVs, cadaver dogs, drones, and helicopters. In late July 2021, a human skull was found in the area, but testing later confirmed it was not Daniel's. Daniel's family hired Jeff McGrath, an accident reconstructionist and private investigator, who suggested that the accident scene might have been staged. McGrath noted that the Jeep's ignition had been turned over 46 times after the airbags deployed, and that there were an additional 11 miles on the car's odometer after the crash. He also found red paint on the Jeep, indicating a possible collision with another vehicle before it ended up in the ravine. Daniel's father, David Robinson, has been vocal about his dissatisfaction with the official investigation and continues to search for his son. He has organized numerous search parties and public awareness campaigns. As of now, Daniel Robinson remains missing, and the case is still open. The Buckeye Police Department continues to investigate, and Daniel's family remains hopeful for answers. The Murder of Gem Master Jay, 2002. The murder of Jam Master Jay, a founding member of the influential hip-hop group Run DMC, remains one of the most shocking and high-profile cases in the music industry. Jam Master Jay, born Jason William Mizell on 21 January 1965 in Brooklyn, New York, was a pioneering DJ and musician. He formed Run DMC with Joseph Run Simmons and Daryl DMC McDaniels in the early 1980s. On 30 October 2002, Jam Master Jay was shot and killed at his recording studio, 24/7 Studio in Jamaica, Queens, New York. He was 37 years old. The shooting occurred around 7:30 p.m. Jay was shot in the head at close range, and another man in the studio, Eurico Rincon, was shot in the leg but survived. Despite the presence of several people in the studio at the time of the shooting, witnesses were reluctant to come forward, and the case quickly went cold. The lack of cooperation and concrete evidence made it difficult for law enforcement to make progress. In 2020, nearly 18 years after the murder, federal prosecutors announced charges against two men, Ronald Washington and Carl Jordan Jr. Both were accused of being involved in the killing, which was described as a drug-related homicide. According to the indictment, the motive for the murder was linked to a drug deal gone wrong. Washington and Jordan were alleged to have conspired to kill Mizell after being cut out of a significant drug transaction. In February 2024, both Ronald Washington and Carl Jordan Jr. were found guilty of Jam Master Jay's murder. The trial revealed that the two men had targeted Mizell out of revenge and greed. Key eyewitnesses, who had initially been too afraid to testify, came forward during the trial, providing crucial evidence that led to their convictions. Jam Master Jay's murder had a profound impact on the hip-hop community and highlighted the ongoing issues of violence and crime within the industry. The death of Sandra Bland, 2015. The death of Sandra Bland is a tragic and controversial case that has sparked widespread outrage and calls for justice. Sandra Annette Bland was a 28-year-old African-American woman from Naperville, Illinois. She was known for her activism and had recently moved to Texas to start a new job at Prairie View A&M University, her alma mater. On 10 July 2015, Texas State Trooper Brian Encinia pulled Bland over for failing to signal a lane change near Prairie View, Texas. The encounter quickly escalated. Dashcam footage and Bland's own cell phone video show that Encinia ordered Bland out of her car and threatened her with a taser, saying, "I will light you up." Bland was arrested and charged with assaulting a police officer. Bland was taken to the Waller County Jail in Hampstead, Texas. 3 days later, on 13 July 2015, she was found dead in her cell, hanging from a noose made from a plastic garbage bag. Her death was ruled a suicide by the Harris County Medical Examiner. The circumstances surrounding Bland's death led to widespread suspicion and allegations of foul play. Her family and supporters questioned the official account, pointing to inconsistencies and the fact that Bland had been in good spirits about starting a new job. An investigation by the Texas Rangers and the FBI found that the jail had failed to follow required policies, including timely checks on inmates and proper mental health training for staff. In December 2015, a grand jury declined to induct the county sheriff and jail staff for any felony related to Bland's death. However, in January 2016, Trooper Encinia was indicted for lying under oath for making false statements about the circumstances of Bland's arrest and was subsequently fired. In September 2016, Bland's family settled a wrongful death lawsuit against the county jail and police department for $1.9 million, which included some procedural changes. Sandra Bland's death became a rallying point for the Black Lives Matter movement and highlighted issues of police brutality and systemic racism. In 2017, Texas passed the Sandra Bland Act, which aims to improve the treatment of people with mental health issues in jails and mandates de-escalation training for police officers. The Disappearance of Mitrice Richardson, 2009. The disappearance of Mitrice Richardson is a tragic and mysterious case that has raised many questions and concerns. Mitrice Lavonne Richardson was born on 30 April 1985. She was a 24-year-old African-American woman who had recently graduated from California State University, Fullerton, with a degree in psychology. Mitrice was known for her vibrant personality and aspired to become a child psychologist. On the evening of 16 September 2009, Mitrice entered Jeffrey's, an upscale restaurant in Malibu, California. Staff and patrons described her behavior as erratic and bizarre. She joined a table of strangers and ordered a meal but was unable to pay the $89 bill. The restaurant staff called the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and the Malibu Lost Hills station to assess her condition. When deputies arrived, they conducted a field sobriety test and determined that Mitrice was not under the influence of drugs or alcohol. However, they arrested her on charges of suspicion of not paying for her meal and possession of less than an ounce of marijuana. Mitrice's car was towed and her belongings, including her phone and wallet, were secured in the vehicle. Despite her mother's concerns about Mitrice's mental state and assurances from the station personnel that she would not be released until the morning, Mitrice was released from the Malibu Lost Hills Sheriff Station at 12:28 a.m. on 17 September 2009 with no belongings and no means of calling for assistance. Mitrice was last seen walking away from the station. Over the next few days, there were several reported sightings of her in the area, but none were confirmed. Her family and friends conducted extensive searches, but there was no sign of Mitrice. On 9 August 2010, nearly 11 months after her disappearance, Mitrice's skeletal remains were discovered by park rangers in a remote area known as Dark Canyon, about 6.5 miles from the sheriff's station. Her body was found naked, with her belt, bra, and jeans scattered hundreds of feet down the ravine. Her skull and spinal cord were detached from the rest of her remains. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Department classified Mitrice's cause of death as undetermined due to the condition of her remains. The circumstances of her release and the handling of her case by the Sheriff's Department have been widely criticized. Her family has maintained that Mitrice should have never been released alone, given her disturbed condition. In 2011, the Richardson family settled a civil lawsuit with Los Angeles County for $900,000. In January 2017, the California Attorney General's office concluded an internal investigation into the circumstances surrounding Mitrice's release from jail and decided not to bring charges against anyone involved. The murder of Emmett Till, 1955. The murder of Emmett Till is a pivotal event in American history that galvanized the civil rights movement. Emmett Louis Till was born on 25 July 1941 in Chicago, Illinois. In August 1955, 14-year-old Emmett traveled to Money, Mississippi to visit relatives. The region was deeply segregated and racial tensions were high. On 24 August 1955, Emmett and his cousins went to Bryan's Grocery and Meat Market. Accounts vary, but it is alleged that Emmett either whistled at, flirted with, or touched the hand of Carolyn Bryant, a 21-year-old white woman who was working at the store. This act, considered a severe breach of social norms in the Jim Crow South, set off a chain of events. In the early hours of 28 August 1955, Carolyn's husband, Roy Bryant, and his half-brother, J.W. Milam, abducted Emmett from his great-uncle, Mose Wright's home. They brutally beat and mutilated him, gouged out one of his eyes, shot him in the head, and tied his body to a 75-pound cotton gin fan with barbed wire before dumping him in the Tallahatchie River. Emmett's body was discovered 3 days later on 31st August 1955. His face was so disfigured that he could only be identified by a ring he was wearing. His mother, Mamie Till Mobley, insisted on an open casket funeral in Chicago to show the world the brutality of his murder. Photographs of Emmett's mutilated body were published in Jet magazine and other outlets, sparking national and international outrage. Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam were arrested and charged with Emmett's murder. The trial took place in September 1955 in Sumner, Mississippi. Despite overwhelming evidence and testimony from Mose Wright, who bravely identified the men in court, the all-white jury acquitted Bryant and Milam after just 67 minutes of deliberation. Months later, protected by double jeopardy, the two men admitted to the murder in a paid interview with Look magazine. The murder of Emmett Till and the subsequent trial were pivotal in raising awareness about the severity of racial violence in the United States. The case became a catalyst for the civil rights movement, inspiring activists and organizations to intensify their efforts for racial equality. In 2022, the U.S. Congress posthumously awarded Emmett Till and his mother the Congressional Gold Medal, recognizing their profound impact on American history. The case remains a powerful symbol of the fight against racial injustice and continues to be a subject of education and reflection. And there you have it, the top 10 unsolved mysteries from the United States. Each of these cases is a haunting reminder of the unknowns that still linger in the world. From the tragic murder of civil rights activists Harriette and Harriette Moore to the mysterious disappearance of young Relisha Rudd, these stories continue to captivate and confound us. They remind us of the importance of seeking justice and the relentless pursuit of truth. Thank you for tuning in to the Most Foul True Crime. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on social media at the Most Foul True Crime.